Welcome to Anything But Ordinary. Tonight's topic is Haunted Arizona. I am your host, Spooky, along with your other most awesome host, Raven.
Hey.
Hey.
Man, it's so hot.
Yes, it is.
We're not used to this much heat right away in the beginning. You know, like May was like 190 some degrees, and we're from like way up north. So we're not quite used to this till like end of June and July. So
Well, we're still in our monsoon season, so I don't know. I think spring just passed us by. I really do. I think there was an entire day of it, but I'm not real sure. I think I might have slipped through it.
we literally had like 21 inches of snow one moment, and then the next minute was like 100 degrees. So we're like,
I hear you.
But tonight's topic, of course, all of you guys kind of know, but for those who listen who are new, this is one of our many recurring themes we have, where we kind of are trying to cover all the states in the U.S. of haunted locations, you know, and hopefully we'll be repeating a lot of these, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And Arizona is basically definitely going to be another one of those states because it's extremely highly active when it comes to the strange cryptids, UFOs, of course, paranormal activity. I mean, almost everywhere you could possibly go, it seems like every almost hotel, house, prison, restaurant, town, it seems to have some type of activity going on.
I know, in some of those towns, though, where it's like the whole town is haunted, you know, like Tombstone, which is basically a tourist town, I know, you know, and then you got Bisbee and those other places around there like that, you know, the small historic towns. But I was surprised at all of the haunted places I found while researching this state. It kind of made it hard to make a choice.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I ended up doing was, and you know, when you think of Arizona, there's several places, you know, that's going to come to mind because you have Superstition Mountains, right? And you got the, you know, like the whole Lost Dutchman thing and Sedona. And, you know, it's just because when I guess when it comes to the paranormal stuff and strange stuff, Arizona is kind of one of the top places that seems to be highly talked about with the paranormal and the UFO communities, you know? And like you said, it was kind of hard what to talk about, you know, because basically what I did is I'm going to talk about a few different locations, kind of like what I want to see, you know what I mean? But, you know, there just all these places, you know, what I'm probably going to talk about tonight, you guys probably already know about, because to be honest with you, I don't think there hasn't really been a place that hasn't been talked about in Arizona just because it's so active, you know?
I agree. You know, I mean, I myself, I don't always do it, but I try to stay away from the places that, you know, everybody's talking about, you know, the more popular places. I like to go for the lesser well-known places. That's kind of hard to do.
In Arizona? Yeah, it's super hard to, like, let me find one that nobody knows about, really. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to do, you know, but there's so many places, like, I'm not a huge fan of, you know, like, complete desert, but, you know, Arizona isn't just all desert either. They do have some wild prairies and things like that, too. But Arizona is a state I do want to hit up, too. I haven't actually been there. I've been to a lot of places in the United States, but I haven't quite made it to Arizona. But after us doing all this researching and stuff, I'm like, oh, now I really want to plan to go there soon because there's just so much. And not just the activity, but the history and how some places started, and, you know, the insane stuff that kind of happened in some towns, you know. It's just like, I don't know. I've been through Arizona
several times. I never really got a chance to really stop there.
Oh, yeah.
Know, well,
now here's your chance.
Yeah. Now's my chance. I got nothing else to do.
Except for do shows, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'll have to do on-road shows, you know what I mean?
But, there you go. If I could figure out how to do it.
Well, you just got to get a better phone. I mean, you have flip phones are outdated.
My flip phone is not good enough for you.
No, it doesn't bother me, but I mean, if you're going to go tour the United States, you're going to kind of need to upgrade,
My poor little flip phone don't even have a camera on it.
let alone internet.
My niece couldn't believe that. She wanted to borrow my camera or my phone, and I thought, well, she's going to make a call, and she got to looking at it. She says, well, where's the camera? I said, there's none. She couldn't believe it. She'd never seen a phone without a camera.
Yeah. Tonight, like I said, I picked a few of some places that I kind of want to go to. But what we do, for you guys who don't know, is we're going to talk a little bit on the history of each location. And then we kind of go into, like, the supposed reports of these paranormal. I'm already starting with messing up. Whenever we're live, we're going to say crazy words. So I guess you guys will have a few good laughs tonight. But then we go into the paranormal encounters and such. But why don't you go ahead and start us off, Spooky?
Okay, I think I will. The El Tovar Hotel at Grand Canyon National Park. Now, this hotel is located just 20 feet from the south rim of the Grand Canyon. I was amazed that something was built that close to it. Construction began in 1902, and it opened its doors for business in January of 1905. Now, it was built by the Fred Harvey Company as a stop on the Santa Fe Railroad line and was meant to be a small hotel, but because of the tourist traffic to the Grand Canyon at that time, they built a bigger one. It was built from local limestone and Oregon pine, and it was built in different levels, ranging from 2 stories to 4 stories in different sections of it. Now, originally it had 103 guest rooms with 21 bathrooms, but today it contains 78 guest rooms with private bathrooms. This place was the pinnacle of comfort and luxury in the wilderness. And like Fred Harvey, the thing that he did mostly was build these places along the rail lines out west.
Well, right, because that's where you're going to make your money, because everybody is
traversing
across. So
exactly. And like I said, this place was the pinnacle of comfort and luxury in the wilderness, and it remains so to this day, with rooms starting at $189 a night. It is also one of the few Harvey houses that is still in business. Now, Harvey houses are a chain of restaurants and hotels, along with other hospitality businesses built along rail lines by the Fred Harvey Company. And a lot of them were built along the Santa Fe rail line because he had kind of a contract with these people.
Didn't it used to have, like, it wasn't like called a certain thing that all these places, because I'm thinking it's Fred Harvey, because there was some guy I was reading about who built like a ton of these hotel things. And it became like a chain of restaurants /
Yeah, well, actually, Fred Harvey is credited with starting the first restaurant chain in the United States. The company was founded in 1876 specifically to cater to train passengers. And by the time Fred Harvey died in 1901, he owned 45 restaurants, 12 dining cars, and several hotels in the American West. Now remember, he died in 1901. This place didn't open until 1905, so he never stepped foot in it. He is, like I said, he is also credited with creating the first restaurant chain in the United States. And even with the decline in train passengers, and more travel being done by automobile, this company still prospered because, they knew how to adjust. Going from train passengers to automobile passengers or, whatever. Mm-hmm. And the Grand Canyon itself was not designated a federally protected park until 1906. So, and by President Theodore Roosevelt. So this place opened before the Grand Canyon was even a state park. And as a matter of fact, the Grand Canyon did not become the Grand Canyon National Park until 1919. Now, there have been many deaths associated with the Grand Canyon, from accidents to murder to stupidity and suicides. And yes, stupidity was listed in there. And In fact, most areas of the place, even through the canyon itself, are reputed to have hauntings. Uh, the, you would be surprised at the deaths that took place in this area.
Not really, because there seems to have been a lot in Arizona, but I think it has to do with, well, like you said, some of it's stupidity. But a lot of people weren't prepared for, they're coming from areas that's not like this. They're not
right
able to adjust to or whatever, you know what I mean?
And that's like hiking through the canyon. A lot of them didn't even take enough water with them. They thought, well, it's going to be a quick hike through there, and all this other stuff. I'll just take a little bit of water with me. A lot of people died of dehydration down in that canyon, and thirst and whatever. They'd get down there, they'd get lost, they wouldn't have water with them. Some people didn't even take water with them. And then you stop and think about the people that would, oh, look, I'm going to get a selfie. Even to this day, oh, I'm going to get a selfie hanging over the side. Oops.
Yeah, but it's not that. But it's really easy to actually, when you're out and about in any national park or wilderness or mountainous stuff or Grand Canyon, and it's not like the trails are like all that wide, but it's really easy to slip where, because you might turn your head for a second. You turn your head for a second, next thing you're down. My luck, I'd be attacked by a bunch of hoop snakes or like all these not cobras, but rattlesnakes.
Rattlesnakes.
You know what I mean?
Rattlesnakes, scorpions, the heat. The heat is brutal.
Yeah, I just see them raining down.
Absolutely
on the sky
brutal. Yeah. When you walk out the front doors of the El Tovar,
yeah,
and you turn to your right, you'll come upon this small area of vegetation. You're going to find a simple little flat gravestone that just simply reads Pearl A. Ward, 1879-1934, and it's spelled P-I-R-L. Now, no one knows for sure who this is, but it is speculated that she was a Harvey girl. And this was a name given to the waitresses that exclusively worked for any one of the restaurant chains. But it said that she worked, she lived, and she died on the property. Now, both visitors and staff have reported seeing a cloaked figure leave the hotel and hover over this grave and then just disappear.
But that could have been an admirer of hers, of a fellow who, always stayed at the hotel and liked her. Doesn't mean it's her per se.
Could have been.
Because it's just a cloaked.
It's a cloaked figure. Nobody really knows if this figure really is male or female. But it goes straight from the hotel, just directly, they said, directly to the grave, and it'll hover over this grave, and then it'll just disappear. There is an apparition of an older gentleman, believed to be Fred Harvey, wandering through the hotel, especially on the third floor, and he will invite people to the annual Christmas party that's held there. It's held every year. It's held on the third floor, and there's always this strange gentleman that goes through the hotel and invites people to this party. Now, like I said before, Fred Harvey died a year before construction and 4 years before the place opened, so he never really spent any time in the place. A couple from New Jersey reported something in their room that would pull on clothing and covers in the middle of the night. And then there was a couple visiting from Los Angeles that claimed that when they walked by their TV, which was off, they said their TV was off at the time, they would see the face of this bearded man looking at them.
Okay, that would freak me out, Or
me
either
too.
If something's looking through the TV, the window, or like your mirror. You know what I mean? Like you're just rolling through, like, I'm going to go hit the hopper, right? And then you just happen to look over in the hotel mirror, and then you see this 1900s cowboy type dude staring at you. I don't know what I'd do.
I don't know what I would do either. I think I would close the hopper door.
If the mirror is in I'd probably end up punching the mirror, because that's my natural reaction. Like, instead of like screaming and like running away, my natural reaction is to defend myself. So I'd probably end up having to pay the hotel people for a mirror, but
for damage. Yeah, I hear you.
I don't think I could handle seeing that.
Staff in the kitchen have claimed that things move by themselves, and things and there are things falling off the shelves for no reason. There are also reports of disembodied voices, cold spots, touching. And there's a painting of this man in there. I think they said it was in the lobby. And they said that when you move, his eyes move with you. It's not one of those paintings where, you see those paintings and it just, wherever you stand, it looks like the eyes are looking at you. They say that the eyes in this painting literally move and follow you. That would freak me out.
What we did a show we did a show like on, was it haunted objects and stuff, like eons ago when we first started, and we talked about some of these type of paintings that seem to possess a life of their own, especially the one where the artist ended up killing himself but putting some of his blood into that painting. Yeah, we did. Oh my gosh, that was years and years ago when we first started that. I think that was like 2014.
One of our, it was one of our earlier shows when we talked about possessed
before
objects.
we even knew what we were really going to start doing. But so is this place kind of like huge for a lot of people? Like, hey, let's go hit this place up. I mean, did you see if a lot of people were sharing their encounters on YouTube? Like, here's a video of something we captured here, or
the videos I saw on YouTube were anywhere from 3 minutes to 10 minutes. And they were basically the same thing, talking about the hauntings and stuff. There was really nobody, sharing their experiences.
Their own personal...
their own personal experiences. And none of the hauntings that appear in this place really appear to be violent. They're more like somebody pulling tricks on you, except for the little guy sitting in your TV watching you. I can't see where that would be much of a trick. But
that's the government. No, no, that would freak me out a little bit. But it makes me wonder if there's, besides just this hotel, if there's activity going on around outside of the place too. Besides the grave site part. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just seems.
Well, I think a lot of it might have been, a lot of the hauntings. Might have been, because they said that there's even, around the place that apparitions have been seen. And I'm thinking it's probably people who, because I never really found, and I looked really hard, about any deaths that were connected to the building of this place. Mm-hmm. And it just seems that maybe a lot of these hauntings, besides the one they think is Fred Harvey and the one that that they think was that waitress, I think a lot of them might just be people that had been there that liked the place that died maybe in the canyon or around the canyon or whatever. I mean, there had been people that's fallen off that rim.
Yeah, but
this place only sits 20 feet from the rim of the canyon. Whoa. I mean,
that's too close for me. But here's the thing.
Yeah, really.
All of this material that came from somewhere. How do you know there wasn't a trail derailment and somebody got killed and some of these objects come from a certain thing, and the trees got to come from somewhere? You know what I mean? How do you know the area where these trees or whatever, the items that came from different places could have came from an area that could have been highly active, and then these things were attached to those items, and then they got brought in to this place. So you never really know where anything comes from.
That is entirely possible, and you've got to think too that there were still train robberies going on at this time. Maybe not so many, but every once in a while there would be. And this place at the time it was built sat out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it was right out in the wilderness. There had to have been robberies in the area or whatever. Yeah,
but we did them, what was it? Serial killer shows. We had some where those people from the 1800s and 1900s. I mean, there was like a plethora of people doing spree killings of all these people who were traversing across America's
because
big
in
chunk of time,
in 1905 when this place opened, the whole country wasn't that populated at the time.
So I mean
there were still
rampant.
There were still places in this country that were absolute wilderness at that time. So a lot of these apparitions and these spirits, you know, could be from anything. Any, from an accident, falling off that rim, getting drunk one night and just taking a walk and one step too many, or robberies, or what, or they could have just, just be people that enjoyed the place and they're back there in spirit form.
Yeah. It sounds like a place I'd want to go check out anyway, because it's right, I mean, you could just, if you have the view of your hotel room looking right over the Grand Canyon, that'd be awesome.
You could be up on, if you had a room up on like the fourth floor, because this thing goes 4 stories high. I mean, I can't imagine looking out my window and from that angle, it would look like I was just right on the rim of that canyon. I don't know if I could stay at this place or not, because for one thing, I'm afraid of heights. And that's one of the things that has kept me from visiting the Grand Canyon.
What, you don't want to go? Don't they have like that glass thing that you could step out on and look down?
Oh, no. Oh, hell no. You would never get me on that thing.
Well, you just have to buy some good binoculars. So, do you want to talk about the next place?
Sure.
Cool. I know this one's kind of popular, but I kind of want to go here because it seems to be really active, but the Cooper Queen Hotel in Bisbee, Arizona. It's located... That's what I said, didn't I?
You said Cooper? I'm sorry.
Oh, Copper. Whatever. I worked all day. Copper Queen. I don't know what I'm going to say tonight.
Normally, I wouldn't do that to you. Truly, normally I wouldn't. But
no, it's okay. Yeah, no.
But I don't think anybody would know what you were talking about if you said Cooper Queen Hotel.
I meant to say Copper. Anyway, Copper Queen Hotel. It's located in Bisbee, Arizona. Now I'm going to be like focusing on make sure you say the right words, on Howell Avenue. But this building, basically got constructed in 1898, and it was completed in 1902 by the Phillips Dodge Mining Company. And the place we were kind of talking about, they were basically doing this to accommodate all those who were kind of flocking into the city for the nearby mine, because they were really successful there for a good chunk of time. Now, this 4-story Victorian Italian brick type building has had a few renovations from time to time, but during its first years of operation, from what I could find, it had 72 rooms, basically your communal bath on every floor, so everybody had to share a bathroom. It had a grand wooden staircase. You had their saloon in your restaurant. They had Tiffany glass in the ceiling in the palm room at one point before I guess it got ruined by some storm. They had hand-carved woodwork throughout the whole hotel, and they even imported Italian wallpaper. So they was really plush for back in the day, Now, I guess this hotel is the longest history of operation in Arizona. That's what they say, I don't know. But it's never been shut down since it first opened in 1902. Now, after renovation kind of took place, several of the rooms were kind of combined to kind of create larger rooms and private bathrooms. And then they ended up putting an elevator in during the 1940s. And then I think sometime in the 70s, they added a pool and some other stuff. But the saloon was expanded as well. And now today, from what I was reading, the hotel has 48 rooms. And a lot of the hotel is still kind of filled with several of the original wallpaper, the antiques and stuff throughout the hallways. But this place does have, of course, many modern day conveniences, because you kind of need that, you know what I mean? But I don't really know. I do know that this place has been on a few paranormal shows, so a lot of people probably already kind of know about this. But it's a place I found interesting.
I want to go to.
Yeah, me too. And that's why I wanted to talk about it, because I think it's kind of really cool.
Yeah, this place for a long time was on my bucket list.
Yeah, well, we should go together sometime. Just get be everybody from our show, let's meet up at this hotel at such and such date, right? But basically, like I said, this has been on a few paranormal shows, and a lot of people who stay here or whatever, they say that they have this paranormal experiences. And when you do think of Arizona, I know this is one of the places that kind of pop in people's mind who are into the paranormal. But I think it's an awesome looking building. The website, which
It
we're going to
is.
put in references, shows like all these different photos of the inside and stuff, so you guys can kind of check it out. But basically what
It's a great building, really.
yeah, basically what they're saying is anybody who kind of stays here for any kind of extended amount of time are going to have some type of strange encounter one way or the other. Because when you're in this place and outside of this place, people are hearing, you know, disembodied voices. They hear laughter and footsteps, you know, with nobody around. They talk about that men will hear a female voice, you know, whispering in their ears when they're in their hotel room, sleeping and whatnot. I think that'd be kind of freaky.
This is one of those hotels, too, where just about every bit of it is haunted.
Yeah. And that's why I kind of picked it. I know it's popular and a lot of people know this, but this is something I'm interested in myself. And you know me, I don't really go do like paranormal investigating and stuff. And I'm not against people who do that. It's just I don't really go do this. But
You don't go looking for them.
Yeah, but I would do it here, you know?
But one of the reasons that I just wanted to go is because it looked like a great building.
Oh, it's amazing inside looking, yeah. We might have talked, maybe we talked about this one already on the Paranormal Soup. I can't remember. Well, it's still a place I want to see, but they have the TVs and lights and electronics and stuff will turn on and off on people in their private rooms. People talk about their batteries being drained in their cell phones, their cameras, or anything like completely drained, even after they just fully charged it. They talk about objects being moved, you know, and it's just random objects, from heavy things to light things. Things will disappear and then reappear somewhere else later on, or like not at all, which I'd be really mad if I like had something and then some ghost took it and it never came back. I'd be like, hey,
I know.
Shake my fist.
Especially
in the air.
something I paid a lot of money for, like my flip phone.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say your flip-flops. But people, you know, they talk about seeing actually objects floating in the air right in front of their eyes, you know, daytime and nighttime. You know, I think that'd be awesome to see. But, you know, people here, they talk about also being touched or caressed while they're staying there, which I think it's a lot of them is men, because there's a female spirit that likes to get a little friendly, from what I was reading and what people are always talking about. People have found objects that were on the wall, or let's say like their bathroom counter, or on like the little bedstand next to it. They'll come back in and all these objects will be laying on the floor. Which, you know, it's kind of hard. You're like, okay, did somebody come in my room and they tidied it up? But I don't really see like the people who come in there to straighten up your room are going to be throwing your objects on the floor. You know what I mean?
I don't think so either, you know, and people that work there are probably used to all of this anyway.
Yeah. People will leave their room, right? And they'll return and they'll find that their door's wide open. And they know they shut it and locked it to go do whatever they're going to do for the day, and they come back and the door's wide open. People talk about hearing knocks on the walls and on the doors, or they'll hear the door handle jiggle like someone's trying to come in. So when they go to open the door, no one's on the other side. But that also happens like when they're in the bathroom or something, and no one's in the room with you. It's just you and you're in the bathroom, and the door's shut, and they hear knocking on their bathroom door, or someone's trying to come into the bathroom door. And there's
now that would annoy me.
There's certain entities or spirits that, you know, people are tending to see a lot, or they kind of labeled them or gave them a name, or say they think it's this person per se. But one of them they say is this young boy. He's like around 9 years old. They call him Billy. And they say that this little kid is probably the son of one of the workers, because this young boy drowned at that age, and for some reason this spirit of a young boy is constantly seen at this hotel doing like tons of like mischievous things. Because when people see this apparition of a young boy, he'll be in a towel. I don't know why he's in a towel. Or, you know, he'll be on furniture kind of like jumping up and down, or he'll be hiding under tables and reach out for them, you know. And they see him.
Is this the one where the little boy interacts with other children in the hotel?
Yeah, this kid, this spirit of this kid if it is a kid. You never really know 100% what an entity really is. But they say that this really interacts with everybody, but it's kind of more in a playful way. It's never really been harmful where anybody's really got scratched or hurt, as far as I know. But they've definitely have seen a full body apparition of a young boy who's, you know, jumping or standing on the bed or furniture out in the hotel, or hiding under tables and like reach out and touch somebody and then they see him or whatever. People talk about also seeing an apparition of a male who I guess is kind of like tall and has like beard and long hair. Probably, I don't want to say Jesus, but he's like dressed in a dark suit. He's got like this top hat and a cape, which don't a lot of people call that like the shadow man too? Because a lot of people see this guy in like a dark suit with a hat and cape or whatever. But a lot of people talk, but I guess back in the period of when this hotel was first made, that would make sense for the attire.
It would make sense to see a male apparition dressed that way.
Right. But I guess they see him a lot, like on the staircase, or he's up
or not a male apparition, I'm sorry, a living male dressed that way during that era.
Well, maybe the apparition's dressed that way back then, too. But they see him on the staircase. He's up on the 4th floor. Oftentimes, people smell the smoke in the air when he's around, which, you know, my thing about smoke, because if a building's been smoked in for decades, depending on the weather, that smell can be released out of the wood and the walls again. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it doesn't mean that he might not somehow bring that smell, too, when he shows up. But people have seen an apparition of a woman. And I guess they say she kind of has, like, this reddish color hair. She's, like, in her 20s. And it's pulled up in, like, early, like, 1900s type of style. And her clothing's the same period. And people talk about having seen shadow entities. And then I guess the room 315 is like really popular. And I know like some of those paranormal shows went there and stuff. And on the 3rd floor, you know, many people have experienced like specifically a female entity where she's just like messing with the males who stay in that room. And then just constantly kind of bothering them while they're sleeping. She'll like whisper in their ear. She'll be touching them and inappropriately, or sometimes they don't see the full apparition. They'll just kind of see like a partial like outline of it. She's kind of like a smoky mist or something. You know, people talk about like she'll be there and still mess with the guy even if his wife's in the bed with him. You know what I mean? But
that's what I was thinking. She just interacts with men.
Mm-hmm. For the this one does. That's what they say.
Yeah, mostly when they're asleep too.
Well, I whatever, you know. She's a friendly spirit.
No, it's just that I'm remembering this because I think we hit on this once. Remember when we did that show with Jason Bland on Paranormal?
Yeah, but I don't remember like what we did. I don't. Well,
we didn't go into it in such detail.
Right, but I don't remember like what we talked. I know we did a haunted show with him on stuff, but I honestly don't remember what we talked about because it was so long ago. But which is good. You guys should check out Paranormal Soap too.
Which is a good show. Check it out.
Sunday nights, but on Facebook. But according to both staff and people who are stayed there, they have like this ghost journal there where everybody writes, not everybody, but a lot of people have written down their encounters or their experiences that they have when they're in this place. And it's like no matter what floor or the area you're in this hotel, I mean, there's really no escaping. You're going to have an experience with something strange. And it's people of all ages and of both sexes, you know, female or male. And there are these people online who have shared tons of their videos, their EVPs, and their photos from this hotel of their experiences with the paranormal, you know. So you guys can just type in Copper Queen and in YouTube or whatever on the browser, and you're going to see
ton of things come up.
Yeah. So it's like I was reading a lot of these journal things that were posted on the internet. And all the variety of things that people are experiencing, and even little kids. I mean, this is a place I would want to check out. Plus, it looks really cool, too.
Well,
You know
like
what
I
mean?
said, this place has been on my bucket list for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's not only for the paranormal experiences, which, that's part of it. I'm not going to sit here and lie about that. But it just looked like a great building, and it looked like a great place to stay, while you're out looking at the rest of the town, because this is in Bisbee, right?
Yeah, which Bisbee I heard is really cool, too.
Yeah, because there are a lot of places in Bisbee. Just about the entire town is haunted. So
yeah,
but
haunted with the afterlife and with people flocking there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, really.
But the thing is cool because it has modern conveniences. It's got a pool, but yet it still has a lot of its old historical parts to it that was built with the old antiques and the Italian wallpaper, and a lot of the structure still a little from when it was first constructed. Not all of it, because of course they had to change it as time progresses, but this is just, I don't know, and it just seems like if you really want to have a paranormal experience, this is the place to hit up. Because
really,
why would hundreds and hundreds of people come on the internet or write in these books and say all these things, and a lot of them are having similar experiences, and seeing in detail at least 3 apparitions that are visiting a lot of people.
I know those 3 apparitions are really busy. They seem to be seen throughout the building. I mean, there are more in there, but these seem to be the 3 main ones that everybody is seeing and actually that are interacting with people. I think there are a lot of residual in there, but
I think it's both because of the things that are moving about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I also read, when I was reading, trying to find places, and I'm like, well, everybody's practically heard of all this, so I'm just going to pick places I kind of want to go to. But I also heard you could be outside in this town and experience strange things, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because like I said, it seems like just about the entire town of Bisbee, Arizona is haunted. Yeah. You can go just about anywhere in that town and have some sort of paranormal or strange encounter.
We need like a couple months off just to hang out.
I know.
In Arizona. And then if we have like people who listen to us that are in Arizona, we'll be like, hey, meet us up at such and such hotel. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. We're going to have to figure out how to do it and just do a road trip and broadcast it.
Well, there's a
okay. I'll have to put a crowbar to my purse and get a better phone. Okay.
Well, yeah, there's technology out there.
I'm just too cheap to do it.
Yeah, there's technology out there where it's not that hard to figure out and do things.
Exactly.
You just have to update yourself.
To have a good phone.
You have to update yourself from the 1800s into 2018, spooky. So.
Hey, I'm stuck in the 1990s. Give me a break.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and do your next one?
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay, Yuma Territorial Prison State Historical Park in Yuma, Arizona. This is another place that I wanted to go to. Excuse me. The prison opened in 1875, but it didn't receive its first prisoners until July 1st of 1876. Now, at the time, Arizona was still a U.S. territory. And this was considered the most feared prison in the whole time it was in operation, and it was in operation for like 33 years. And during that time, it received around 3,069 prisoners, and 20 of them were women. Now, the prisoners served time for anything ranging from murder to polygamy. There are several things that made this particular prison unique, but the 3 main things was instead of cells being housed in a building, they were built into the walls that surrounded the prison, and the prison was constantly under construction to be expanded. And the third thing is that the prisoners were the ones building the prison.
I'm sorry, but if you have the prisoners building the prison to keep them secured in. I'd be the prisoner who'd be like making faulty walls and door hinges and everything else.
You would think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Really, you would think so. It was built from stone, and it had iron gates, and even the bunks were made of iron, that the prisoners slept on. And the only air that came through these iron bars, because the prisons were mainly, it was like having the doors, they were just bars. It was kind of like having a window open at night.
That's probably like the only way they got any airflow in there, but it still would be
right,
blank and
now,
hot,
The so-called dark cells, which were solitary confinement, they had solid doors. And when the prisoners were sent to the dark cells, they were chained to the floor, and they were fed only bread and water once a day, and air came through small holes in the top of the cell. And the prisoner was kept in total darkness, and their clothes were removed, even their undergarments. Now, some of the prisoners sent to the dark cells came out, and they were insane, and they had to be transferred to the insane asylum in Phoenix. Most of the prisoners sent here were hardened criminals, including the women. Now, two of the more notorious women were Elena Estrada, who served 5 years for manslaughter, and some say that she killed her lover or husband and decapitated him, but I have not been able to find any proof of that. If that was the case, she would have been there for more than just manslaughter.
What year was that? What year was that she went in for?
That was the 1800s.
Yeah, but remember when we were doing deadliest women throughout history and a lot of stuff during the 1800s and the 1900s? Basically, the women got their hands slapped and they're like, you can go. You know what I mean? Even if they because they were killing babies and all this stuff, and I'm like, what? And like, how did they get out? Like, I couldn't believe, like, because, like, oh, it's a woman. She didn't mean to do it. She was emotional.
Back then, a woman had to be really, really evil back then to even be hanged, because they didn't like to convict women. And it just, I don't know. I was surprised that this woman got 5 years. And during that time, she spent 5 days in one of the dark cells. She came out, didn't seem to bother her. Or she could have been insane when she went in. Who knew?
Yeah, maybe it made her sane. Or maybe all her, demon friends were sitting in there talking to her, so she wasn't alone. You know what I mean?
Could have been. The other woman was Pearl Hart. Now, she was a Canadian-born outlaw, and she committed one of the last recorded stagecoach robberies in the United States. She was sent to Yuma because she kept escaping from other places where she was housed. And actually, we could do at least a half a show on Pearl Hart, and I plan to do so at some future time because I found this woman really, really interesting. Now, during the 33 years that this prison was in operation, there were 112 deaths, and 104 of them are buried in the prison cemetery just outside the walls. Now, 46 died of consumption. 8 were shot while trying to escape. 6 were from suicide. 5 were from work accidents. 1 was an actual, what they call a legal execution by the county. 2 were murdered by other prisoners, and the rest were listed as natural causes.
Did you say 1 was an illegal killing?
1 was a legal execution by the county.
Oh, but how many deaths? Because when we were doing different prisons and things like that, how many back in the day, and still kind of a little bit, how many people die in prisons and, by the hands of people who work there?
Well, that's true too, but, you're not going to really find that in the records.
Yeah. True, but
and
it does
like
happen.
I said, out of 3,069 prisoners, 102 deaths was not a bad average, really. But that's probably the only ones that they actually listed. That there's probably more that they just didn't list. And of all of the deaths, only 1 was a female, and they didn't say how she died. I think well, wait a minute. I think they said that she actually died of consumption. Consumption was really bad back then.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think being out in the Arizona desert that it would help. But it got to the point that these people were piled on top of each other practically, because there was a time when this place got overcrowded. And that's basically the time when consumption was just running rampant through this prison.
But you can't have the best sanitary conditions back in that time period, you know.
Well,
I'm
that's
sure
true.
they just went right in their cells. And we're not trying to be disgusting. We're just being honest, you know. It's not
right,
like they're like, here,
let's
let you out to go to the outhouse.
It started out that there were 2 prisoners to a cell.
Yeah.
And there was a time when it got to the point where there were 10 prisoners to a cell. And these were not big cells. They barely held 2 people.
Yeah. Well, they still overpack stuff, so.
Yeah. And, like I said, from 1876, it operated for like 33 years. I was surprised that it operated that long, really. Because this place was so primitive. There are 2 cells considered the most haunted. One of them being the dark cell, one of the dark cells, and the other is cell 14, where a man named John Ryan committed suicide in 1900.
Mm-hmm.
A ranger at the prison told of being scared by a presence that she felt in that cell. She didn't see the presence, but she said that the presence was very, very strong. It was to the point that she could just feel the hair on the back of her neck stand up. This same ranger also claims to have a photograph in her files of a woman tourist in like the 1930s in front of this cell, and standing behind her is a clear image of a man standing just inside the cell.
Oh, do you have a link that we can put in references so people can check that photo out?
In the links that I gave you.
Okay, cool.
Or not in front of that cell, but in front of another cell, because the cell that the woman was standing in front of was the cell that housed the insane prisoners that were waiting to be transported to Phoenix. There is also the story of a woman writer for the magazine Arizona Highways, who went to Yuma to do a story on the prison. Now, I don't know if this woman was nuts or what it was, but she wanted to spend 2 days in one of the dark cells. She wanted to be chained to the floor, and she wanted to be fed bread and water.
She just wanted to live the whole experience? Is that what you're trying to say?
She wanted to live this experience for 2 days in one of the dark cells.
But that's like, humans are social beings. And when they created this, it was as a form of punishment, but it was also, but it psychologically damages you over time. This woman...
Well, she only lasted 4 hours because she started screaming to be let out because there was someone in the cell with her.
I believe it.
So she didn't last long in that cell. And by the way, the spirit in the dark cell, that spirit is said to pinch people and is attracted to children and to the color red. The prison's not only the place, though, said to be haunted, like the offices and the museum. Oh, and at one time after this place closed down, from being a prison, it was actually a high school. I can't imagine any high school that would want to be in this place. But the high school didn't last long either. Go figure. Like I started to say, the offices and the museum are said to have spirits. Like in the offices, things are said to move on their own, and the lights go on and off by themselves. In the museum, there is the spirit of a woman who likes to sing, especially early in the morning. And there's also a poltergeist who is attracted to money. Who isn't? Excuse me, I'm having problems with my throat tonight. Especially dimes. Both staff and tourists have claimed that to have seen that the cash register just open on the drawer, just open by itself, and these dimes would float above it and then suddenly just drop back into the drawer. And of course, you also have your disembodied voices, your touching, your sense of fear in certain areas, and of course, your cold spots.
I like you're like all polite about that being touched in certain areas. You know, it's a prison. They haven't had something for a long time. You'll probably get molested there. Basically, that's what happens.
Probably would. There's been apparitions actually seen all over this place. And I can understand why. And when you go to one of the links, there should be a picture of the cemetery. And it just, even the cemetery looks sad. You know, you just kind of get a sad feeling just looking at it.
Yeah. Well, it's sad. A lot of these people who got tossed into prisons anyway, a lot of them, because remember, what the heck were we watching? And we were talking about, were we watching some cheesy B-flick movie? And we were talking about how people could just get tossed into prison back in the day for anything. I forgot what the heck we were watching. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We were watching one of those
wolf movies or something. What the heck?
Yeah, we were watching one of those cheesy werewolf movies from the
1940s.
40s, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was in the 1940s. And then they're like, we found female fingerprints behind the fireplace. And I'm like, how'd they know they were female? You know, it's like... Yeah. And so they were basically convicting this person off of nothing. And back then, what I was trying to say is, you know, they didn't have the best, kind of like what we have today, a little bit better. But these people were tossed in there for who knows how long. Plus, you know, prisons is basically they make money off of by keeping people in there. You know what I mean? So
yep.
Some people need to be in prisons, and some people should not be spending time in prisons. But I could see why prisons tend to have a lot of activity, which I think is probably like residual too, just because of the emotions that are imprinted into these places because of all the dark feelings you go
back
through
during this time, you could get thrown in prison for just about anything. They had a few guys in there. I think 2 or 3 guys in there, and I can't remember their name, but they were in there for polygamy. You know, I mean, polygamy. That having multiple spouses would be punishment enough. They don't need to be thrown in prison for it.
I'd be thrown in prison because I kicked a tumbleweed. That'd be my luck, you know.
I know you had to really be careful what kind of crime you committed back then. You know, check with them. Well, if I do this, am I going to get thrown in Yuma?
Yeah.
And this place was just, you know, criminals, even the hardest criminals out there were afraid of being sent to Yuma.
Yeah. I was actually going to pick this place too, but then when you're like, I'm picking it, and I'm like, okay, you know, but this is definitely, are you still here, or did we lose you on Skype?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh man, you freaked me out, because there was like a couple weeks there where your Skype kept kicking you out, but I can see why these places
Don't say that. So far, so good.
Knock on wood. But I totally believe that prisons and hospitals and things like that, and orphanages, definitely hold some type of energy that's left over or imprinted there.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Oh yeah, and you can see from the picture, you know, how these cells were. I mean, these cells were built into the stone walls. You know, and you really, I don't know. I'm sure there are people in chat and listening that live in Arizona.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of our viewers,
you know, during the day, it's hot as hell. I mean, the heat is just brutal, but at night it actually gets cold.
Not that cold. I wouldn't. But with that
and
many
these people
bodies,
are basically outside. Well, 2 people in a small cell, it's not going to get that cold in there. And with the way these cells are, there can't be that much of a breeze going through.
No, so you got stale air.
Stale ale. Yeah, I know, and that's tragic. It really is.
Yeah. Well, they make booze from bread and juice. But no, they had stale air. Man, I worked 10 hours today, so my brain's not working right. We apologize, guys. We're going to have mess-ups on live shows. It happens. Anyway, but you also have, not very sanitary conditions in there, too.
Mm-mm.
So there's a lot of issues that are going on that caused health problems. You got all these things. So, I mean, I don't know if these are all, like, intelligent hauntings, per se. But I definitely think they're probably residual. But I don't think I could handle being stuck in the dark room, you know what I mean? And I think that lady had some big rocks in her bra to be able to say, chain me in this and leave me in here for 2 days. There's no way.
Well, she only lasted about 4 hours, and like I started to say, this prison was actually built to keep people from escaping. And when people were sent here, they weren't paroled. They served their time. Even the women. But the women were not given really very big sentences.
Is there...
And of course, when it closed down, they were sent to other penitentiaries in the state. But
yeah, I know. Didn't Ghost Adventures and stuff? Didn't they go to this place too?
Ghost Adventures have been there. There 2 or 3 ghost shows, those paranormal shows, have been here.
Mm-hmm. But in prisons, there's a lot of murders too. They're always killing each other.
Well, they only listed 2 deaths as prisoner on prisoner, but I can't believe there was only 112 deaths in this place. There had to have been more, because the prisoners built this place. The only thing about this place, it had nothing to do with rehabilitation. There was nothing in there about how many of those prisoners were worked to death.
Yeah.
Because this was strictly...
They had to build their own prison.
Yeah. Yuma was strictly hard labor.
Yeah. Do you want to take a quick break so I can get some water? Because it's really hot in this room. So
yeah, I need it too.
Okay, we're going to take a quick 3-minute break, guys. And then we're going to go into the second hour. And me and Spooky still have several more picks that we picked that we want to kind of check out. Thank you again to the viewer who suggested tonight, because I really enjoyed searching Arizona. Made me I need to go here soon, but we'll be back in 3 minutes. We're just going to get a drink of water, and we'll continue on with tonight's topic, Haunted Arizona. Welcome back to Anything But Ordinary. I'm your host, Raven. I almost thought I was spooky there.
You almost said spooky, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I did that last time too. I don't know why. We're switching names. No, tonight, Haunted Arizona. It is a viewer's request, which we totally thank you for suggesting this to us, because I just read about so many amazing things. And it's not just the paranormal. I mean, there seems to be cryptids running rampant in Arizona, as well as UFOs and alien stuff and reptilians. And I'm like, oh, I could talk about so many things.
Arizona, wasn't Arizona where that Travis, what's his name, got abducted by a UFO? Mm-hmm. Wasn't that Arizona where they thought his friends killed him?
Yeah, and then he was like, we did a show on that, and he was like gone for like a long time. But there is a lot of things going on, because I was like, because I was trying to like, okay, find haunted places, and then I'm like, all of a sudden I stumbled over to reptilian encounters, and then I was reading about
UFOs,
skinwalkers and Bigfoots, and the Yindalaloshi and all these things. And I'm like, oh man, we could talk about a bunch of stuff, but then I'm like, no, I can't talk about this because we're saving that for when we do cryptid states and stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
But even just the energy in Arizona alone, there's all these different vortexes and things, that like in Sedona, and like a lot of people go there to, connect and become more spiritual and other things too. And, you know, there's just a lot of things going on in Arizona. I mean,
there's thousands of people that go to Sedona, Arizona just to sit in the vortexes that are there. I would be afraid to do that, because it'd be my luck. I'd be transported to another dimension.
What's that movie with those two guys where they're working in the afterlife as, cops that have to chase down the dead and bring them back, who are...
R.I.P.D.?
Yeah, that'd be your luck. You'd be,
that would absolutely be my luck, and I'd get teamed up with somebody like... what's that guy's name? Jeff Bridges.
You wish you
would. And he turned me into some little Asian guy holding a banana.
That's the movie.
Yeah.
But in Arizona, they also have ant people and so many other things. And it's just so fascinating, the things that I was discovering and reading about. And also the history about how a lot of places came to be... There's this guy in chat. It's just cracking me up. That's why if you guys hear me giggling sometimes in chat, it's this guy's name's Yellow Canine, and the things that he's coming up with about your flip phone are just slaying me. You know what I mean? Because he said at one point, like, he heard about drones flying over prisons and people dropping cell phones in and stuff, and then they said that they would toss your flip phone back over the prison wall.
I know.
So that's why I'm sorry if people are like, why is she giggling during her talking? It's like sometimes
it would be
in live chat they just slay us. We can't help it.
It would be my luck. It would be my luck that I would be sent to a dimension where, remember when mobile phones first come out and they had these great big huge attached batteries to them?
Where you would have to wear it on your back and stuff?
Yeah, that would be my luck. I would have to wear one of those on my back just to use my phone. You can laugh about my flip phone, but I get signals where a lot of people don't.
Yeah, no, you're lucky you'd be the operator during that time period. But back to our haunted Arizona stuff.
That's like Maria on there was talking about the Phoenix Lights. Remember that deal?
Yes, there's actually a couple places in Arizona that has interesting lights. What was the heck of that place? It starts with a B. And it's not Bisbee, but it's a different place. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll talk about this. But then I found other stuff, and I'm like, no, I got to talk about this first. But, yeah, there's strange lights. There's strange things. You don't know what you're going to run into in Arizona. It's kind of like Nevada,
Abraham Martinez says, I saw a documentary where people can walk into certain hot spots in Arizona and literally feel a change in the atmosphere, almost magnetic.
I believe in that, because who is that guy who made the Coral Castle?
I think Sedona is one of the places that happens.
Yeah, but remember we were supposed to do a show on like Coral Castle and all that stuff, and you know how that guy built this box and learned how to work with the energies of the earth and would lift all these stones and everything else. So I believe that, you know, what he's talking about with people walking into certain spots, like little vortexes and magnetic, and they feel the energies and stuff. You know, I totally believe that. Because there are, and they're not just in Arizona, they're like places all over, you know?
Yeah.
But, I'm going to talk about our next one.
Okie dokie.
I don't know. We're kind of like all over the place tonight. I don't know.
I know.
I guess it's one of those nights where you just kind of like blah, you know what I mean? So
yeah, one thing leads you into another, and then you come right back to where you want to be.
Right. Although we sometimes really get... Well, this is kind of like what happens. This is why we kind of started doing shows anyway, because we're always just talking about so many things just in our own private Skype calls. And you're like, hey, let's just do a show. And we're like, okay, you know. And so sometimes we forget we're doing shows, and we
it's the same way with the research we do, too. We start out looking up something, you know, trying to research it, and it sends us down so many paths that you don't know which one to take.
Yeah. You never know. Petrified Forest National Park. There's kind of like two of these that I picked because they're like right together. But this is located in northeast Arizona off of Interstate 40. But, you know, this place is, you know, an area that's really well known for its fossils, which I think is interesting. That's one of the reasons why I want to go there, too, because they have many of these, like, trees that are said to be, like, over, you know, 225 million years old. And this area became, like, a national monument in 1906 and a national park in 1962. But you ever notice, like, national park, state forest, and all that stuff? There's always, like, weird things happening in there. And it almost feels like they made those places, like, specifically never to be encroached on, because there's obviously some things that are going on in that place that they don't really want people messing with. But to get back on topic, besides the fossils of these trees, there's also been, you know, dinosaur skeletons, remains that have been found there as well. But there's like all these different petroglyphs. They also have like this museum there you can go check out to kind of like learn the history. And, you know, they got like tons of like hiking trails that are kind of like paved, that I think they said are like almost like 3 miles long, you know. But even wow. I know what you mean by wow, not happening unless you can drive a go-kart. But the reasons why I'm mentioning this is not only because it's kind of cool looking place and I think people should just stop by and like take a hike, but it's been said that this area kind of seems to bring a curse to anybody who takes anything from this national forest, especially, you know, the petrified wood or some of the rocks when they bring them home. And also it's illegal, so don't do it, okay? Don't take anything from there. But you know, it's dating back as far as like the 1930s, they have people that have claimed to have been cursed when they kind of lifted something from the park and brought it home with them. And people have mailed back all these different objects that they had taken along, you know, taken with them. And they sent it back and they write them this long letter explaining, you know, all this doom and gloom things that basically have been occurring to them ever since they took this object from this area. And the cool thing is you can actually read a lot of these people's notes and whatever, because it's in a museum part where they call it like the Rainbow Forest Museum section. And it's kind of like this whole room is filled with what they call the mystery of the conscious wood. All I hear is Richard in my
out
head.
Of curiosity, and somebody in chat just asked this, do they say what conditions caused the petrification of this place?
Of the wood, you mean?
Yeah.
Well,
because petrified wood is wood that is turned to stone.
Yeah.
What caused it?
I don't know. I wasn't around 225 million years ago.
Sorry.
What am I, your science teacher?
Well, I figured you would know.
There is multiple reasons why certain things occur.
I'm sure it's environmental conditions around this place.
But at one point, this all was like, you know, green and ginormous trees and like living monsters that could chomp on you, like whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, I know I was having a hard time saying what they called this room because it's kind of funny that they would pick those words, but you know why they picked it. But in that room, they have all these people's letters and the objects that they sent back because technically they can't take those objects and put them back out in nature because it'll affect the preservation of what they're trying to do. So it's been tampered. So they can only throw it in a big pile in one section, or they keep it in this room, right? But
Right.
this museum's filled with like tons of different objects or whatever. But people have had health issues happen to them. They die. So I guess the guy who died can't really send his stuff back, but I think his family does. They had car problems, job problems, family issues. It just goes on and on and on. And I think there's like almost 2,000 letters displayed in that little museum room with these, you know, because a lot of the objects, they can't store them all in there. But, you know, there's a lot of people who are stealing, openly admitting,
really?
like, I stole from you. But, but that's not the only place that tends to, people will say that an object that they, you know, lifted from somewhere ended up cursing them, you know, because there's places in Hawaii and other stuff.
Well, there was a ghost town that we did in California where people were stealing things from there and having bad luck because the ranger said that they were mailing stuff back, that just about every day they got something back in the mail that somebody had stolen from there, whether it was a rock or an artifact or whatever. I can't think of the name of the ghost town. We did a show on it.
Well, I don't know. We've done so many shows, and there's a little bit of, and we talk about a little bit of everything in shows that aren't even pertaining to that topic, but somehow everything,
Yeah.
It's weird. Everything's kind of connected in like this weird web. You know, you start off like researching, like, okay, we're supposed to research about haunted Arizona. Next thing you know, we're reading about government conspiracies to laws that people don't even remember that were passed, to this, that, whatever, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and they're like, oh, we got all these show ideas, you know, but the other, which, you know, when I go here, I'm not going to, like, take any objects, but I think it would be cool to see a lot of this old stuff, like the petroglyphs, the petrified rocks, and just to feel like the type of energy and to wonder, like, why are people being cursed by taking this object? Is there any strange things that are going on? I think you can't be there after dark, but, or, oh wait, maybe there is a camping area over there. But, you know, you can definitely spend a good chunk of time there, and you never know what you might just walk around, be all quiet, and turn on your EVPs and see what you might even pick up with your digital recorder, you know, by, you know, because a lot of times, like me, when I'd be out at our place in nature and stuff, remember I'd be filming or doing stuff to show you the area, and then we come back and we're playing the video, and there's all these voices and different EVPs coming on, and I'm not even a paranormal investigator or looking for anything. So it'd be interesting if anybody goes out there to bring some of your digital recorders and just see what you might capture. But the next place is apart. It's in the national park. It's called the Painted Desert Inn. It's right off of Interstate 40. It's in the like northern section of the park. Now, this place was kind of like first constructed in 1920 by H.D. Lohr. And in 1935, the National Park Service basically bought the inn and the area surrounding it. And then the inn was kind of like remodeled. Well, because he built it as like an inn restaurant. He was making a bunch of chains too. You know what I mean? But after 1935, the National Park bought his inn and, like, of course, all the National Park that's protected now in that area. And what they ended up doing, they kind of remodeled it in 1937 by, like, the Civilian Conservation Corps people. But this place is, like, it's kind of got this Pablo style with the wood and the stone and the terrace, and I guess they say it's like 2 feet thick, and it's kind of got your earth tone stucco stuff. But the inn was opened in 1940 by the Harvey Company, and for a few years it basically lodged several visitors from Route 66, which we should just do a show on Route 66.
I know, that's another interesting one.
Yeah.
Route 66. Part of Route 66 is not really far from here. I think it's like 20 miles from here, if that far.
Yeah. And in 1942, this place ended up being closed down for a bit. And then in 1947, it was kind of like later reopened. And it was used as one of the Harvey House lunchrooms and hotel. And then during the 50s, there was like this fire that occurred in the inn. And this park ranger was nearby, and he was like, oh no, I see smoke, right? So they like blazed in there, and they saved like the hotel manager that was there at the time, who he found this person passed out on her bedroom floor. So he basically like carried her out of this smoke-filled room, and he ran back in to put out like the flames. And then when he returned back to Miss Mace, that was the hotel lady manager who worked there, her body was basically lifeless, and she basically passed away due to smoke inhalation, right? Now they say they surmised that the fire was basically set by her because she like smoked like a chimney basically. And it was her room that caught on fire, her bedroom area. But
yeah,
it was closed down in the 60s. And then they're like, hey, let's just demolish this, right? And then people were like, no, this place has got history, la la la. So like in the 70s, ended up being saved. And then it was put on like the National Historic Landmarks in the 80s. Now, the main building is now used as like this museum and bookstore. And people talk about this place being haunted. Because people who like visit this place, and also like the rangers who kind of have worked there through the years or are working there now, they all talk about hearing like disembodied footsteps walking up the stairs from the tap room below. And when they go looking, they find no one there. People talk about hearing disembodied voices or these low conversations going on, and when they go to check out, no one's in that area, but they can still hear it. One night, after closing the place down, one of the rangers said they went outside the building, locked it up, and was going to leave. And when they turned, they saw this figure inside the building. So of course they went back in to say, hey, the museum's closed, you got to vacate. But when they stepped inside, they were hit with the smell of cigarette smoke, but they found no one in the museum. They looked high and low into the basement and everything. And there was nobody there, but they clearly saw somebody walking around inside from the windows outside. So I think it's interesting that this place has activity in it. So is it this woman who perished from the smoke from the fire, or is it because of what's going on in the national park? Because how people are talking about how they're lifting objects and being cursed and stuff. There's another type of energy here, or something that's going on, Hello?
Hello, I'm still here.
I asked.
Well, I was hearing voices in this room around me. I was just making sure they weren't in my head.
Yeah. Probably somebody outside the window.
Is this the only spirit in the place, or
no,
are there others?
I didn't say there's one singular spirit. I'm saying that there's paranormal activity that's occurring in this building, where people are hearing disembodied voices and footsteps and conversations. Okay. And somebody in chat said, Cassandra, said she was at the Painted Desert Inn, and she said, yes, I heard footsteps and whispers when I was there too.
So the place is definitely haunted.
I think that maybe it's not so much like the people who stayed there, who worked there, or the woman who possibly died there, but I think just because the national park has its own bizarre things going on, that maybe because this place is in that same area, that's why this place might be active.
Well, Cassandra says something about Native American influences there.
Well, yeah, because they have all those petroglyphs and everything else. But right. Imagine, like, when this place was a lush forest and everything else, who knows what's traversed across all these lands and what type of emotion or tragedies or anything else could have ever occurred, because we've only been on this planet for so long, and me as you as an individual are only so old, you know what I mean? Imagine, way back then, all the way up to now, all the things that could have transpired, or what have you. You know what I mean?
Right. I think I'm going to have to put this place on my bucket list too.
I think you just have to put the whole state of Arizona on your bucket
Just
list.
about. You just about have to.
Yeah. Skip
If
on
you
some of
wanna
the fast
really-
food restaurants, but even though I heard some of the fast food restaurants in Arizona are haunted, so.
Yeah.
And not by the past dinners that people ate, but literally, it's like Arizona is a hot spot. You know, there must be some type of energy.
I don't know. I've eaten a couple places where later the food came back and haunted me.
Yeah. But I definitely want to go to this just because I would walk around. I just want to see this stuff. You know, I just find that amazing that because everything's so torn apart or destroyed or covered up with cement and buildings and everything. And to see things that are, you know, like millions of years old, or to see, like, you know, all these petroglyphs or anything else, to me, I find that fascinating too. I mean, I like the history and the hauntings. I like it both, you know. Gotta have.
I think sometimes I get more interested in the history than I do the hauntings. You know, that used to be one of the reasons why I used to. I don't watch too many of those paranormal shows anymore. But when I do, I watch them long enough to hear the haunting of a place, and when they or the history. Sorry. I'll watch it long enough to hear the history of the place, and then after they're all done talking about the history, I usually change the channel. I'm just more interested in the history.
Well, you're always flipping the channel, so, and you come back to stuff too.
Yeah, that's true.
You're like watching.
I'll go through the channels 20 times before I decide on something.
Sometimes you were watching like 5 shows at once, like, you know what I mean?
I know.
But that's okay.
I know.
But this place definitely I want to go to. You know what I mean? And I want to go to the museum and read all these people's letters and stuff about.
You know how long it would take you to read 2,000 letters?
About as long as it takes you to make a text on your flip phone. But I still would do it, you know, take a couple days to read that stuff. I don't know.
When she texts me, she's telling that because when she texts me, she'll get 4 texts in before I get 1.
Your one will be H-I, and sometimes it's not an H, it's like the next letter, like J next to the H. But do you want to go ahead and do your next one?
Sure, why not? The Vulture Mine in Vulture City, Wickenburg, Arizona. Excuse me. Now, the Vulture Mine was discovered by a Prussian prospector named Henry Wickenburg in 1863. He was with another group of prospectors when he kind of wandered away from the group, and he discovered this rich vein of quartz on this outcropping. So he went back and reported what he found to the others, but they more or less really ignored him. And that was most likely because at the time they were finding small amounts of gold, and they didn't want to leave where they were because they were thinking, you know, well, any time I could hit the mother lode. Well, that was their mistake because Henry filed a claim, and this mine became one of the biggest producing mines in the Arizona Territory. Between 1863 to 1942, it produced something like 340,000 ounces of gold and 260,000 ounces of silver. So he had a double whammy there. And because of the mine, more than 5,000 people moved to this area, and that's when Vulture City was founded. Now, I could really get into the history of this place, but because of time, I'm going to be leaving a lot of things out. But anyway, Vulture City had just about anything a person could want or need. It had shops, it had schools, church, saloons, and brothels.
Remember that one place, was it Bodie? They had like billions of hooker places.
That was
and
the place
saloons.
that was Bodie, California, where people were taking things.
No.
And they were sending them back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was Bodie.
But I was thinking about that because they had because what you just said, like they had 500, no, was it, how many, was it, they had more churches or more saloons? I can't remember.
They had more saloons and brothels than they had churches, which was the same way with this because they only had one school and one church in Vulture City. But they weren't short on saloons and brothels, let me tell you. I mean, this was a fast-growing boom town. And of course, you know where their priorities were in the saloons and the brothels.
Well, that's the only jobs that women could really get back then. You're either a nurse.
Well, you got to stop and think too that prospectors, I mean, they were men.
Yeah.
When businesses start coming into these boom towns, it's usually the saloons and the brothels that come first because those are the people really looking, to get their gold. The one thing it did not have, though, was any kind of law enforcement or even a jail. Now, because of this, no. 5,000 people, no cop. Because of this, crimes such as theft, murder, and high grading, to name a few. And by the way, high grading was the theft of high-grade ore.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, gold. It didn't need any because Vulture was a vigilante town, and they took care of their own justice because one of the things that they did have was a hanging tree. 14 people were hanged from that tree for the crimes that I mentioned before. And in 1866, Henry decided he had had enough of mining, and he sold the mine for like $85,000.
Well, that's a lot of money.
It was back then. He received like $20,000 in cash, and he was promised the rest as the mine produced, but he never received it. In fact, the new owners refused to pay, citing that Henry did not have a clear title to the mine.
Who bought it? The Rothschilds? Because sounds like their type of family would do that.
It never did really say who bought it. It did say that Henry spent the rest of his life trying to collect this remaining $65,000, and he spent all of the original $20,000 like on legal fees, but he never collected it. So on May 14th of 1905, he was up in years, he was in bad health, and he was penniless, which was surprising for a man that discovered one of the most important mines in Arizona. He just walked outside behind his cabin and he shot himself.
Dang.
In 1923, there were some miners that were chipping out ore from one of the rock walls, and they ended up cutting into one of the support pillars, and 100 feet of rock came crashing down on them. And in that, 7 miners and 12 burros died. In 1942, due to poor management and poor financial planning, not to mention there was a government ban on mining and smelting because of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
They felt that all the effort should be toward the war effort. The mine closed permanently. Now, today, Vulture City is a ghost town, but there are quite a few of the buildings still intact. And the mine and the town now are privately owned, and for a small fee, they give you a map and they send you on your way for a self-guided tour.
We know how that happens. You
Yeah.
end up down in the cave and never be found or something, That'd be my problem.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's also a caretaker there, and the caretaker and his wife report hearing strange noises and footsteps in their cabins.
Mm-hmm.
And if you stop and talk to them, they're actually more than willing to share their experiences around the place, with visitors. Now, there was a mess hall there that was built, with a kitchen, and it's no longer in use. But when you walk into it, there's a smell of food and the clatter of pots and pans. There is a sense of fear and death near the hanging tree. Of course, there would be, and the hanging tree still stands there. In the cemetery, there's been apparitions, and some of them are dressed as miners, however a miner dresses. And there's also an apparition of this bearded man near the ruins of Henry Wickenburg's cabin. Of course, believed to be Henry Wickenburg himself. Now, his cabin sits behind the hanging tree, and the cabin's in ruins.
Mm-hmm.
There's basically nothing there but maybe, partial walls and the foundation of the cabin. Of course, you got voices near the mine, you got voices in the mine, you got apparitions around the mine and the town. People on these walking tours have reported seeing apparitions of men and women and sometimes children just around this town. So basically, just about anywhere you go in this town, you're going to see something, especially around the mine.
You know, there's something kind of strange when it comes to cave systems and underground stuff, because it seems like a lot of bizarre stuff does happen in that, and where people will be down splunking, you know, or, you know, mining, and they'll hear voices and stuff. And remember they had those one people do a show for a little while, I can't remember, where they were in that one mining, gosh darn it, what was it called? Where they were sending, like, there's these people who were mining a mine, and there's a couple paranormal investigators who were hanging out there and filming and going in with them, and they were getting voices, they were seeing shadow people and other stuff. Do you know, remember what show I'm talking about?
I know what show you're talking about, but I can't think of it.
Yeah, me either. But it's very interesting how there's strange things that are always kind of occurring underground in these cavern systems and everything else. But, you know, when we were researching a lot of stuff when we did shows, when it came to cryptid things or the giants and things like that, but they talk about how a lot of these things come from underground, you know?
Well, I watch a show, maybe this is the show you're talking about. I watch a show on Destination America, and it's called Underground Monsters.
No, that's not the show I'm talking about.
Okay, but it's a show about, and every once in a while you catch a pretty good marathon of it, but it's a show about these guys that go down into caves and stuff looking for, you know, monsters that are reported to be living in these caves and stuff.
I've never seen that show. I should check it out.
It's on Destination America. Oh, and I got one more bit of history for this place.
Oh, go ahead.
Jacob Walls. Now, this is actually the Lost Dutchman. It's been reputed that there really isn't a Lost Dutchman's mine, because he was actually caught and he got away with it. He was actually caught stealing gold out of this mine. And they believe that he carried off quite a fortune. And they believe that he hid it somewhere in those mountains. Somewhere. And they believe that this is where the legend of the Lost Dutchman mine came from. And people still go out there looking for this mine. But it's claimed that this is actually not a mine per se. It's just his stash that he stole. And according to reports and rumors and stuff, this man stole a lot of his gold right out of the Vulture Mine, because he did work there. And to get to this place, for anybody that's interested, you take Route 60 west from Wickenburg, and you go for 2.5 miles to Vulture Mine Road. You turn south and you travel another 12 miles to the mine, and there are signs. And like I said, it's privately owned now, the mine and the town, and for a fee, they hand you a map and send you on your way. You can explore the town. You can go to the mine entrance and see the tunnel or the shaft that goes down into the mine, but you can't go in the mine.
Well, no, it's dangerous. And especially people are talking about seeing like orb type things in the photo, but I think that's just dirt, because you got the wind's blowing. You're got this
that
dirt
one tunnel that one tunnel that collapsed and killed 7 miners and 12 burros. They left the miners down in there. They didn't even go down and get them. So, you got their spirits still going around that place.
Well, there's a lot of miners that are buried in mines.
Oh, I imagine there are.
And there's a lot of people that are killed for the smallest, tiniest amount of gold, or even for a bottle of whiskey back then, There's a lot of stuff we read about, not just in Arizona, about some of the crazy things people, they still do crazy things.
And you think about the vigilante justice the so-called vigilante justice that went on in this town, because this town did not have a cop whatsoever. Didn't even have a jail. They just, certain crimes, not every crime, but what they considered really serious crimes like horse thieves and murder and stealing high-grade gold. You got hanged for stealing gold.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine, there's quite a few of those, because they said that, there's also apparitions seen around the hanging tree.
I just think it's kind of interesting, things that go on underground and the type of experiences that people are even having. It's kind of creepy. Remember?
It is creepy. It's very creepy. I visited a few ghost towns and stuff, and it's just, every one of them are just creepy.
Having flashbacks of older job days.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if I could go into a cave. We've been, when we were...
I couldn't go into a cave anyway.
Oh, see, we did. When we were growing up, and my parents would, take us to different places, we'd go at least somewhere in the summertime, and they would try to, travel much around as they could, you know what I mean, because we're not, rich or anything. But, we went to some places in Wisconsin and other places where you go into these caves where we were on this boat ride. It's like a paddle boat, where you have to oar. Mm-hmm. Like, the guy was using the oars to go through the cave system, or we'd go through these caves, and the tour guide's like, blah, blah, blah. And you'd always sometimes you would see something or hear strange things, So I just always thought it was kind of fascinating. Remember, was it Kentucky, the Mammoth Cave? Was it the Mammoth Cave? That's what it was, right?
Yeah, Mammoth Cave's down there.
Yeah, that's extremely active, too. But it makes you wonder, what's really creating and causing all those different things, you know what I mean?
And if you really look at this picture that you have up of mine shaft, I'm sure that a lot of those orbs are dust, but if you looked at that one side, that's almost like an apparition standing there.
Well, that could be sun flare, too.
Could be. But it's just an odd-looking flare.
Yeah. Did you want me to go on to the next place, or did you still want to talk about this place, or?
No, I'm done.
Okay. Let's see here. The Oatman Hotel, which is located in Oatman, Arizona, on basically Main Street. The hotel's down on the left side there, where the little yellowish building, that's the one. But this is a 2-story Spanish colonial building, which was originally... Okay, here's the thing. It kind of varies because I found the documentation for the building, but on their sign it says 1902, but on one of the, where they have somebody come out and inspect it and then you can read all the details about the place, it says 1924. But they say it was constructed in 1902, but I guess at some point a part of it was rebuilt in 1924 by a man named John Durlin. Now, the Durlin Hotel operated under that name from the years of 1924 to 1929, and that's when he sold it to this lady. Her name was Miss St. Charles. Now, she basically bought this place for her sister, so her sister could have some income and all that, whatever. But I guess after she purchased this place, not too long after, her sister passed away. So then she sold this place again to another guy. His name was Mr. G. Rayburn. Now, he owned this place for 2 years up until his death. And it was during the 30s up until the 60s, there was a couple more owners until 1969, when this guy named Mr. Whittaker, I think that Whitaker or something, purchased this hotel, and then he changed.
Well, it sounds like just owning the place was a curse.
Yeah, but he ended up changing the name to Oatman Hotel. Now, the reason why it was changed to that was the Oatman family's daughter, Olivia, was actually kidnapped by the Apache natives, and she was actually kept captive in 1851. And then she was later traded to a different tribe, who ended up taking her into their family, and then they tattooed her face because that's their tradition or whatever. But she was, And it wasn't until like 1856, after 5 years, she was set free at Fort Yuma, Arizona. So that's kind of like the town, and the hotel is kind of like basically named after that family and kind of in honor of Olivia. But the hotel has like a bar, it's got a lobby, it's got like 7 guest rooms on the first floor. It's got like hardwood floors and doors and like molding. And they got like the wooden stairs that would go up to the second floor, and they have like 14 rooms and like a small apartment that basically served like a lot of travelers and miners and famous people through the years. And it wasn't until like the 80s that the place was bought by the current owners who own it today. And they kind of renovated it and changed it a little bit, because now the second level was converted into like this museum. And the hotel basically has like 8 rooms now, a bar and a museum. But the bar and the restaurant room has like all these dollar bills stuck on the walls and all the ceiling. When you walk in there, all you see is like money everywhere, right? But they say this started like back when the miners used to like frequent this place. They would stick their money on the wall, sign it, so the next time if they came in, if they were short a little bit, they'd have some money on the wall and they could pay for their drink. Which probably happened a lot. You know what I mean?
Probably did.
But they say there's like thousands of dollars inside this hotel, right up, just pinned all over in there. But in 1939, Clark Gable and his new bride, Carol, they stayed in this hotel for their honeymoon. And they kept coming back and returning to this place because they really loved the solitude of the town and the hotel and the people who lived in this town. You know, he used to sit there and play poker with them and stuff at the table, you know. And the room that they stayed in is kind of like this little museum tributed to them. You know, it's got a lot of the same memorabilia type of stuff from the past of when it was kind of like when they stayed in there, you know, and pictures of them and whatnot. But the whole hotel no longer has like overnight accommodations. But, I mean, you can hit the bar and the restaurant and just hang out on the first floor. And the museum on the upper floor, I think it's basically open to the public. But this hotel was listed on the National Registry of Historic Places in 1983. But it's not just the hotel, man. The town is cool, too. Because I was, like, reading about other places in the town. And they got a bunch of burros hanging out down the street. It's just, you know, it's cool. It's like you're kind of stepping back in time. And then you got the surrounding mountains and cool. It's just, it's like cool. You know what I mean?
I know, you can tell by looking at the picture. This is an old town.
Yeah.
This is an old West town.
Minus the cars and stuff. But
right.
But it's not just this hotel that seems to have activity. There's other places going on in this town too. But, you know, and you know what? I kind of want to do a show on Olivia Oatman myself. Because when I was reading about when her family came over here, and the things that happened and how she was taken and the life she was living for a while.
Yeah.
That's an awesome show just to talk about in itself. But, you know, many people who had happened to stay there through the years before it was no longer a hotel but a museum, the visitors and the hotel workers all have made several statements that this hotel has activity. You know, they were hearing disembodied voices, whispers, you know, laughter in the rooms that were empty, which that would always get me, is when you hear weird laughs, you know, and nobody's there. Especially if it's like a little kid crazy laugh, you know what I mean? That always gives you like the spine tingles, you know, like, oh, you know. But they talk about having lights being turned on and off, doors and windows are opening and closing on their own. People talk about they'll see doorknobs turning from the other side of an empty room, blankets being pulled off a bed. They also talk about how some of the rooms that are kind of made into like a museum-looking thing where you can't go in there, they'll see a body outlined, found on the dusty beds as though someone was sleeping there. But all around the bed, the other dusty objects aren't disturbed. Just right there where the body impression is like laying, you know what I mean? And they talk about feeling cold spots throughout the whole building. They hear sounds of bagpipes, which, like, what? Bagpipes, you know? But I guess they claim, you know, there's this Irish guy or whatever who had perished there, right? But they also, there's a guy, I guess, I forgot this, but there's a guy out there who's got a picture out there somewhere. I think I'm going to put it in the references so you guys can check it out, where he was taking pictures of an empty room, and the apparition of this man appeared in one of the photos. And they say that one of the male spirits that roams this building, people say, is this guy. His name was William Ray Flower. He was like this Irish miner who came to America with his family, but all his family perished on their way here, and he was the only one to survive, which...
Wow.
It just tormented him, you know? And that happened a lot to people who were traveling over here, you know, with the conditions in the boat and everything else. But he was just tore up by that, so he took up drinking. And one night he passed out outside the hotel, and he was discovered days later. Well, they ended up digging a grave right there, and they just, you know, where he passed away, and they just laid him to rest right there. Now, they say this apparition of this man's been seen tons of times, and they actually believe it to be him. So they call him Odie, or Adi, or whatever. But they see, like, in the bar area, people have seen, like, the lights going on and off by themselves, the toilets flushing on their own, which plumbing can kind of do that, you know what I mean? So you can't really say, like, oh, that's paranormal, because, you know, sometimes some old sinks or whatever can have water pressure issues, could turn water on and off depending on how the setup is, you know. But they talk about footprints showing up on a floor that was recently just mopped and cleaned, and then you'll see these dirty prints show up, you know, and nobody was in there. They talk about objects being seen lifted or played with, you know, even the bar glassware. Like, the bar will be full for them, for the small town. They'll be hanging out, and all of a sudden this glass thing will raise up off of the you know how they have the shelves in the back of the bar guy? And it will float in the air and then land on the bar. And they'll say, oh, it's Odie, let's, you know, they're like, give him a drink. So they'll pour a shot in it, and then the shot sits there at the end of the bar, you know, where the glass landed. You know, and I guess that happens a lot. So, I guess...
What would happen if some drunk just came by and saw that sitting there and just downed it?
Maybe the ghost would kick his butt? I don't know. But I
don't know why that came into my head.
But I think most people would probably be more respectful because, you know, this is like where they hang out and they're used to these spirits. But there's people who said, you know, they came in when they were down here for something. This is before the place no longer took people in, and they had the hotel to their whole place, the whole hotel to them, because the owner would be like, here's the keys, you know, and they left. And then they would kind of like, we're walking around and they're like, let's go to that guy, you know, that one room. And then when they get to that one room, like creepy stuff would start happening. It freaked them out so bad that they ran back to their room and didn't like leave it until morning time, you know. But there's a lot of people that I was reading on the internet, which I'm going to put a link in our references, where you can read about their encounters while they're at this place. And I find it very fascinating, you know, especially what happened to the Oatman family. If anything, you should read about the Oatman family, but I think we should do a show on the some of the Wild West stuff again, because we haven't done that for like a long time.
Yeah, we haven't done a Wild West show in ages.
Yeah, and people are always asking us to come.
We're about due for one. Yeah.
But I picked this place again too, like the other ones, is because this was something that I would go check out too, just because the town's really kind of interesting. It's small. It's kind of like you're stepping back in time. And it's not just the hotel that seems to have activity, but, you know, just outside in the town itself, too. And the people seem, like, really cool, you know? So,
yeah,
it's kind of like, you know, if you want to have a good Arizona experience, go to the Oatman. Well, you can't stay there, but go to the Oatman town, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And maybe you'll have a little paranormal. They think, like, oh, the famous people are kind of haunting there, too, but I'm like... because they kept coming back and they really enjoyed it there, you know, Clark Gable or whatever. But
I can't imagine Clark Gable and Carol Lombard going to a small, out-of-the-way place like that.
Why not? Because you're probably surrounded by people all day long, all these yes men and yes women, and they just wanted to escape.
Yeah, both of them probably couldn't go anywhere else without being recognized and being bothered.
Well,
you know.
they were probably very well recognized, but the people there probably respected them, and they could have normal conversations, were treated like normal people, where, you know, everywhere else you're like, oh, hey, you know, like, give me your autograph, blah, blah, you know.
Yeah.
So I can totally see why they went. Same reason why I want to go there, because it looks super cool, you know.
Right.
You should probably do your next one, because we have like 10 minutes left.
Okay, I did the Jerome Grand Hotel in Jerome, Arizona. Excuse me. Originally, the United Verde Hospital, and it was built by the Verde Copper Company, which later became the Phelps Dodge Mining Company, who owned a lot of places down there, in 1926, and it opened its doors in January of 1927. Now, this place was constructed of poured-in-place concrete, and it was poured on a 50-degree angle on a solid bedrock against the slopes of the Mingus Mountain. And it is a 30,000 square foot building, and not a single piece of wood is in the framework. This place was built to be fireproof and earthquake proof because it needed to withstand Mother Nature and also the blast of like 260,000 pounds of dynamite. It also contained an Otis elevator that was installed in 1926, and it was Arizona's first self-service elevator, and it served all 5 floors. Now, in 1930, it was considered a state-of-the-art hospital and considered the most modern and well-equipped hospital in Arizona. But in 1950, as mining operations, you know, started shutting down and the medical staff were transferring to nearby Cottonwood, the hospital closed and sat empty for like 44 years. Now, during its time as a hospital, there were approximately 9,000 deaths there, some from illness, and since it was the main medical center for the mine, there were a lot that went through there, you know, that were in mining accidents and then later died. And then there were also accidents there of a suspicious nature, such as the death of like Claude Harvey on April 3rd, I think, 1935. Now, Claude was a maintenance worker in the hospital, and he was found pinned by the back of his neck by the elevator, dead.
What? That's...
Well, it was like he fell down in there and his head got caught.
Yeah, but that's a horrible way to die, you know?
Yes, it is. It's a very horrible way to die. But an inspection of the elevator and a coroner's inquest determined that his death was not caused by that elevator. Now, because the United Verde Copper Company did not want suspicion pointing at them, and it didn't matter if it was an accident or intentional, there was no autopsy and Claude's body was not x-rayed. And to this day, his death has yet to be determined. But the speculation is that he was murdered, and to make it look like an accident, his body was placed in the elevator room.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's also one known death in the former hospital during the time that it was closed. The Phelps Dodge Mining Company hired this man named Manoah Hoffpower to be caretaker and to live in the building, and they did this in hopes of stopping the vandalism that had been a big problem for years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Hoffpower lived in the engineer's office, and in 1982 he was found in that office hanging from a steam pipe, and his death was ruled a suicide. Now, Larry Althier purchased this former hospital from the Phelps Dodge Mining Company in 1994.
They owned a lot of stuff back then in Arizona.
Oh, they sure did. They owned a lot of mines, a lot of buildings. They had this hotel, restaurants, and even like, you know, this hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this guy out there bought this place in 1994, and in 1996 he opened it up as the Jerome Grand Hotel, and he's still the owner. Now, the hauntings in this place has such a high level of paranormal activity that just about every area is haunted, and it's considered the most haunted place in Jerome.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Arizona, because I'm like, I call BS, you know, but yeah.
Guests report hearing coughing, labored breathing, voices coming from empty rooms. They report smells such as flowers, dust, cigar smoke, and whiskey. Now, both guests and staff have reported hearing and seeing this child who looks to be about 4 or 5 years old on the 3rd floor running up and down the halls giggling. And the same child has been known to appear in different rooms, standing at the foot of the bed, just staring at the occupants of the bed. I cannot imagine waking up and finding this kid looking at me.
Yeah, but you
standing at the foot of my bed looking at me.
But you remember that time we had that paranormal talk night, which we got to do those again, and have people come on and share their stuff. But you talked about being in the shower and you stepped out and there was a little boy spirit in your room or in your bathroom, and you're like, what? You know, remember? So I think that's far more creepy than a little boy staring at me at the end of the bed.
That's a lot worse. That's a lot worse.
Yeah, because you're like naked and stuff.
Yeah. I think he was attached to that footstool that I bought at that antique store.
Yeah.
Because when I got rid of the footstool, I've never seen him again. The sounds of children running and laughing are heard on the 3rd floor.
Mm-hmm.
And on the 4th floor, there is also the sounds of babies crying and the smell of baby powder. And the sounds of these babies crying have caused other guests to complain to the front desk about this. And they were, only to be told, well, there are no babies on that floor.
Yeah, it used to be a hospital, though, too, you said, so.
Right, so that was probably the maternity ward, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
The staff and the guests have reported bedside table lamps and TVs being just unplugged. They'll be, lit, or the TV be on, and all of a sudden, they're unplugged. There's been reports of shampoo bottles that would roll across the floor, or they'd come flying across the room. The guests have reported finding their cell phones, their cameras, and their camcorders dead center under the bed. There are the sounds of doors opening and closing in vacant rooms. The front desk staff on the midnight shift, they report hearing coughing and sneezing coming from the laundry room. They have also said that they've seen the apparition of a man that they believe to be Claude Harvey roaming the stairways, and the boiler room as if he was still at work. Guests and staff have reported seeing apparitions of a woman in a white gown, like a hospital gown. They've also seen apparition of a woman in a nurse outfit. They said they've seen the apparition of what they assume is a doctor in a long lab coat carrying a clipboard.
Mm-hmm. Residual, probably.
Right, and there's also the spirit. People have claimed to have seen the spirit of a cat. Now, nobody knows the origin of this cat, but it has been seen and heard both hissing and meowing. And it's also been known to rub against the legs of both guests and staff. And it's also been felt by guests in their beds snuggling up to them.
How do you know it's a cat? Unless you've physically seen a cat. Because I'm sure not everybody's seen an apparition of a cat, but that'd be creepy.
I know, that's very creepy to me. In 2008, this female guest staying in room 20, she gave the front desk staff a photograph that she took in her room that clearly shows the spirit cat, and the photograph is still there. But these are just examples of the haunting at the hotel. I mean, there were just way too many to list all of them.
Yeah, I just
And, and of course, you still have your cold spots, your disembodied voices.
yeah, and
Uh,
this is like one of those places too where you can kind of like Google it and people have some of their evidence.
right, right. But just about anybody who stays there has had some sort of paranormal encounter or experience at this place. Because they say, literally just every bit of this place is haunted.
Maybe that ghost cat's like a raccoon or a skunk.
I don't know. I
They
can't imagine a raccoon snuggling up to people in their bed.
Some people have raccoons as pets and skunks. They just take out their stink gland. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's true. It's the same thing as ferrets. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's true.
I've seen people have pet raccoons. Not on purpose. They just moved in. You know what raccoons are. But I don't know. See, I think like all the places you were talking about tonight, it's definitely like some of the places I want to hit up to. And with Arizona, it's definitely a place we have to do again and again.
And Jerome is another town in Arizona that...
Isn't it like one of the most haunted, supposedly active towns?
Yeah, it's very active. Like I started to say, Jerome is another town in Arizona where it seems like literally most of the town, if not all of it, is haunted. There is something going on somewhere in this town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You could literally just talk about the whole town. That'd be one whole night show that we'd have. Haunted.
Well, there were several
Jerome
places in the town that there were several places in the town I considered, and I just settled on the Jerome Grand Hotel.
Yeah, I really kind of enjoyed researching this one, so thank you to the viewer who requested this, because
oh, absolutely,
it wasn't just the supposed paranormal activity, but it was the cryptid stuff and the UFO stuff and the energy spots and everything else, and there's just so much to talk about when it comes to Arizona, so we're definitely going to be talking about this again in multiple different shows that we do. It's not going to just be like haunted states, because somehow it's going to pop up in other things we talk about, especially when we talk about UFO and things like that. But
yeah, Arizona seems to be a hotbed for UFO sightings.
Yeah, and strange lights and though. But I definitely want to talk about like more when we come to. We have to talk about Superstition Mountain, and there's a lot of Bigfoots that people are seeing down there too. But we do have to do a show on the reptilian stuff, and really soon too. And I guess there was tons of show suggestions in chat, so hopefully we can scroll back up and write them. But
yeah, I wrote some of them down as I saw them.
Yeah, because we can't always see chat. It's like I quick glance over, but I'm running everything, so I can't really look at it every time. Only once in a while when you're talking.